Hey, good morning. We are here in Beaufort, North Carolina. Not Beaufort, that's South Carolina. But we are here in Beaufort, North Carolina. We're going to be heading up to Oriental, North Carolina today. And this is where our route is going to have a major shift. Because if you look at a map of North Carolina, there are kind of two different ways you can get through the state. You can either go east from here, past Capers Island, I believe it's Capers Island, and then out to Ocracoke, and then Hatteras, and then all the way up, right at the Avon, all those places, all the way up the coast there. Or there's actually an inland route, which is actually the official intercoastal waterway, and that is going to be our route here for the next couple of weeks as we finish up our route. So we're going to be going from here up a canal to Oriental, and then from Oriental we're going to be going around a point up to a town called Belhaven, and then we're going to take a really long canal behind Lake Mattamuskeet up to the Alligator River, and Alligator River back towards my home on the Outer Banks. I'm pretty excited. It's going to be a lot of pedaling probably, but I'm excited. It's a part of the state I haven't seen before. I've seen Ocracoke, I've seen Hatteras. I can probably go back and boat it another time, but let's go ahead and get started on our morning here, finish some coffee, and go have an adventure. So I don't know why it took me so long to figure this out. Getting off the dock by myself can sometimes be a little complicated. But almost 3 months into the trip, I finally figured it out of untying all of my lines, but then just running one last line around a cleat around the front of my Akka here. So it's basically holding me against the dock. Now, would it work really well in rough conditions? No, but in calm conditions like this, it's great. So that literally all I have to do now is undo this line, pull it through here, so that way I'm already seated when it comes to getting off the dock, which makes it way easier, way safer, and a lot more efficient. This could be particularly useful if there's a strong current. However, as you can see in this case, there isn't a whole lot of the current anyway, because we're kind of tucked back in a corner here, but come on, here we go. I swear the amount of boats that are named Pura Vida. Anyway, the sun's probably right behind me, but anyway, on to Oriental. And it's probably going to be a bit of a pedaling day, but we've got the current with us all day today. Well, where I thought the tide would switch over is not where the tide switched over. What I mean by that is not by this on the time, but my location of, we have currently going up Core Creek here. As I'm coming up, I'm gonna be meeting another river, the Neuse River, coming up towards Oriental, and they meet. And usually where those rivers meet is then where, if it's an incoming tide, it's gonna be incoming and incoming, and then there's that point where it switches over. And I thought that was gonna be farther north than where we are here. That it was way further south. I mean, it's probably almost a mile behind me here. Now thankfully there is wind that's helping push past this current. So I think kind of a interesting thought with taking this inside route is pretty much at the end of the day today, we're going to be further in from the coast than we have been since we got back out on the water. Because basically North Carolina coast like jets way out to the east, and we're just taking this inland route. We're going to cut back out once we get up to Alligator River and Manio and Killable Hills, but from here we're going to go pretty much due north. It also means that the environment's totally changing. That, you know, we're getting pines right by the water, and we're getting different grasses, and we're getting bushes, all very much that are not salt tolerant, which tells me that this is probably way more fresh water than we've had recently. Plus also the current changed a little bit, which is cool, which also just shows how weird currents are, because we're not even to the mouth of the Neuse yet. Anyway, it's hot, like really hot. Although, I can't say anything, because do you know what's happening in the Northwest right now? Okay, Northwest now for me, not for you. This is weeks in the future. Right now, the massive heat wave is hitting the Northeast. So, you know, Portland and Seattle and the greater, you know, just Washington State, Oregon, and, you know, Pacific Northwest are just getting absolutely horrific, record-breaking heat with like temperatures in the upper 100 teens. But it's definitely hot here. Breeze helps though. I'm missing my sunshade. My sunshade broke. We are now entering one of the larger rivers that we've traveled in this entire trip. We're entering the Neuse River, which actually, funny enough, is the river that the creek that was by my childhood home drains into this river. So technically, we could follow this river all the way up its tributaries to a creek that leads to my old house, which is cool. We were making good progress here. The breeze is helping with the heat, although it is still hot. Tomorrow is supposed to also be hot, and then the day after that's supposed to be like really hot. And then it's supposed to rain. Yay. Welcome to the rain season here. It just rains all the time. You know, during this entire time of this trip, I've been continuing to try and figure out what's the point? What's the story in all this? That yes, I'm collecting stories, but that doesn't make for a good story. So ultimately that means that I'm the one sharing my story, which is kind of hard from both a like external as well as both an internal perspective. Especially saying it's for my first film, or whatever it's gonna be. If I had to put any kind of story together, it would be the evolution of my understanding of where we are in our country and how to have better conversations. That I've learned a lot about, and I have a new perspective on and a new respect for. Overall, we all want brighter future. It just comes down to how. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, outside of politicians and putting them in their own category. But everyday people want a better, brighter future for themselves and their families. Let me tell you, I've met people that I've completely disagreed with on every point. But you know what? Still had a good conversation. Now, I will admit of my privilege and acknowledge it, that I'm a young white male. I have most of the privileges that come with this country. So there is that. I have to acknowledge that. That there are severe aspects of the project that were made easier. Particularly when it comes down to sitting people across the aisle from me. Because there are also certain assumptions that are made about me when I come into a marina by myself. What I hope is that this project, this trip, can inspire other people to utilize their skills, their assets, their abilities, their passions to do something in their community. If you're watching this now, at least you're listening, so thank you for that. You know, when you get out of the wind, it really gets toasty here. It's another hot day. It helps when the breeze comes, but here in the canal, it gets hot. Well, we've made pretty good time today, if I do say so myself. We left the dock at a little after 8:30 this morning, and it's just a little after 3:30 right now, I believe. 4 o'clock. So what is that? 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8.5 hours of travel, and we've got about 3 miles left. And we've already gone 21 nautical miles, which is actually like 24 miles, statute miles, in 8 hours, so it's not bad.
So I'm here in Belhaven, not particularly thrilled about it, in that I was only planning on being here for one night, and here I am for 2 nights. And we are, in the last 2 weeks of this trip. Now, don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed my time here in Belhaven. It's a really cute little port town, and there's some really great people here. Some odd people too. But overall, people that care about their community, which I think is the most important part. But then on top of that, we are now starting to look at the possibility of another tropical system coming through the area. And this is now Hurricane Ella. I think Ella. It's at least the E. And this is now the earliest 5th named storm in recorded history, and our first hurricane of the year here in 2021. And its track is tracking right towards here, which means that it could be here next week, which means I'd have to pull off the water again twice in this trip. Now, I was budgeting for at least one of these because on average, and they said this, the average 5th named storm comes August 31st. And we're in, not even past the first week of July. And so it's frustrating, but I think it's also indicative of, a changing climate. A lot of these communities are reticent to talk about climate change because, year to year, there's not that much difference until you start looking at larger timescales. But also in communities, many communities, particularly small communities, they don't look outside of their community. So if it doesn't affect their community directly, then they're not going to note it. That, okay, there might be more hurricanes created year after year, but if it's not, directly affecting one particular community, then they're not going to talk about it as much. We look at last year that, here on the East Coast, there weren't that many hurricanes or even tropical storms that hit the East Coast. Most of them most of these storms hit the Gulf Coast, which I guarantee you people are noticing. But here on the East Coast, people aren't going to notice that as much because many people live inside the bubbles of their communities. So it's finding it harder to talk about it because people just don't even, acknowledge that it's a thing, that it's here. Because for many of them, because usually the easy go-tos when talking about climate change is more storms. But for people that live within these communities that never look outside their community, that unless their community gets a direct hit, they're not gonna, think about it. And I don't know what the answer is. I think someone I talked with laid it out best that, the only way that people are going to, actually act upon climate change is if there is a major disaster. And we could say those are already happening. So I don't know what it is going to take. It's a great question. I don't have the answer to it. I'd like to find out. It's a pretty awesome sunset too.
Well, everybody, I think that is a pretty good place to leave things for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button to help reach a broader audience, as well as if you haven't already, hit subscribe for more videos of my journey up the East Coast. We're getting towards the end here, so just a few left, but we've got a lot more content coming after that. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you out on the water.